Welcome back. This is not your normal episode. We thought every now and then we're going to throw in some little ones here and there, just about one certain specific topic. It was brought up by my lovely wife Tina just a short time ago. Said, "Hey, why don't you guys do a quick cast on your top 10 favorite tag teams of all time?" So we haven't talked to each other about this. We just kind of threw them together. So the topic is favorites. Tag teams. How do you want to do this? You want to count down 10 to 1?
Go 10 to 1.
Okay, you want to do one at a time?
Yeah, let's go one at a time. Each do number 10, each do number 9.
You know, what if my number 8 to 7 is your number 10?
Well, number 1 you'd have good taste, but it's
I
doubt some of these we're not going to hit because you're still
Okay, well let's fire it off here. Chuck, why don't you give me your number? Right. give me that we're still watching the football game. Give me your number 10 favorite tag team and why.
My number 10 is it's the Bruise Brothers, and I was a big fan. I was probably as early on in watching, probably 9-10 years old, and they came on in the old Mid-South. Number one, the guy's name, Pork Chop Cash. I just
can't beat it.
They would come in with the briefcase and the Blues Brothers look, and it's Pork Chop Cash and Tony Anthony, and they were just fun to watch. For me,
it was Graham.
Tony Graham. Well, Anthony was later. Tony Graham was the one early on. But yeah, they were just fun to watch. They were different. They had their music. They had the briefcase.
I thought they were great.
They were cool.
Well, they played the Blues Brothers music before they got hit with it. You know, they were good. They were fun. They come in, they take the gear off, and they had the briefcase.
They unlocked the briefcase. And
I did not have them in my top 10. Good choice.
Didn't think you'd have them.
I'll give you an up on that.
There you go.
All right, my number 10 was the Varsity Club.
Which who? All of them?
Rotundo. Well, there was really only 3: Rotundo, Williams, and Steiner.
Right.
Danny Spivey showed up a little bit.
Right.
But, I liked him because number one, I liked them wearing the college college onesie. I love that.
That and the Letterman
and
jackets.
The headgear. Yep. And I just, you had Steiner wore the Michigan, Williams had the Oklahoma, and Syracuse for. I just thought it was cool. I mean, it was an idea. It was a different idea. It was fun. Rotundo has always been he's been a great. He's everything he ever did. He was really good.
He was really good.
Steve Williams. He was not a great professional wrestler. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he did. He was just all brawn and buffalo.
He was fun to watch.
Rick Steiner was awesome. Everything Rick Steiner did, I always loved Rick Steiner. So.
Definitely.
So I'll go Varsity Club because just because they were fun to me.
Yeah.
The characters and the and the costume. Just the costumes of it all really did a lot for me. So all right, what's your number 9?
All right, number 9. I'm gonna go Dusty Rhodes and Manny Fernandez.
Rhodes and Fernandez.
Yeah, I love Dusty Rhodes, but there was
went back a ways.
There was just something about Manny Fernandez that he was what I considered extremely believable. He really was. And no matter who he tagged with, it was always fun. He tagged with Rude for a while. I toyed with Rude and Fernandez, but
he was one of those football players that went into wrestling that really did good.
And how do you not like a guy whose finishing move was called the flying burrito?
Exactly.
You've got to.
And it was so good too. It was so powerful. He'd come flying around there and hit. I mean, as far as let's see, that's back whenever finishers you didn't get up.
Right. You got hit with it, and that was it. And they had Rhodes would do all the talking, and Fernandez was the muscle of the group.
Well, but even Fernandez was good on the microphone.
Sure, he was.
He was really good.
He was one of the ones that again, I was probably 11, 12 years old, but he was one of the when he turned heel and was a bad guy. I still liked him because he was just fun to watch.
But his interviews when he was with Paul Jones and his bunch, his interviews were
very very rough.
I believed him.
Yes.
Oh man, definitely. Good choice. I got to write that one down. Okay. I'd thought about Fernandez and Rude. I didn't think about Rude. I forgot they won titles.
Yeah, I had to go. Yeah. I almost had
Okay.
Rude and Fernandez. That's
My number 9. Well, my number 9. I got Dusty Rhodes too.
All right.
I got Dusty and Nikita.
Nikita. There you go. See,
And,
I thought about them.
Well, the storyline itself was,
the superpowers.
So, well, the Magnum TA thing, it's right after TA got hurt,
Right.
in the car wreck, and then then they had to find Dusty another partner, and they grabbed Nikita, which was just out of nowhere, and the program they put on, golly, it was just so good.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good. Like you say, Dusty can carry anybody, but Nikita was just It was
unexpected.
It was unexpected, and he's just so athletic and so believable. I mean, you can put any other wrestler up there with a clothesline, and I'll put Nikita up there with him all day.
Oh, sure.
The way he pulled it off, and
sure.
And he sold when he sold on the bad side. Whenever
With
he
everybody.
got hurt, whenever he got punched or whatever, he really sold well for a big guy. Most of your big guys don't sell. God, he was.
And he made you believe he was actually Russian.
Yes, good. Yeah.
The guy was from Minnesota.
Dude from Minnesota, he brought it. He brought it.
Made it
Real
very
nice guy
believable.
from what I've ever heard of.
Yes.
So that's my number 9.
Right.
What do you got at number 8?
We're going to probably start to match up on a couple now.
Now, what do you got?
Number 8, I got the Steiner brothers.
I do not have the
You
Steiner
didn't put the
brothers.
Steiners on there?
I see.
What the hell is wrong
I
with
should
you?
have, because they were in the running. They were good for me, but I went with the Varsity Club because of the costumes. I just like the several. I mean, I know they still wore the singlets, and they,
Right.
but having the 3 different ones, and I just went. With
I went with them because, like you said before, I've always loved Rick Steiner.
Right.
I loved Scott Steiner before the steroids took over.
And I think that's the one reason that I kind of shied away, because he
was
turned
the
me
first
off.
guy having a guy that size.
Yeah.
Do his Frankensteiner thing.
Oh yeah.
That you just looked at it in awe of, like,
Yeah,
how in the hell does a guy like
that's
that
that's impossible.
able to just jump flat-footed into a guy's
he's
shoulders?
one of those guys that we rewind VHS tapes and watch over and over and over.
Just thinking, oh my God.
How in the hell does he
You
do
talk
that?
about he was like one of the original freaks of nature that you just couldn't believe he was pulling off some of the stuff he pulled off.
Yeah, see that's one that I thought about them, but then I went with the Varsity Club. That's where Rick Steiner was also. But yeah, I mean,
And these
good
guys
choice.
these guys were legitimate wrestlers.
Yes,
Collegiate
Right.
All-Americans that turned
Right.
it and were
exactly.
that made it in the professional and made it very, very believable.
That's correct. Okay, that's a good
All
choice.
Right. Where you at? Number 8.
What number are we on?
Number 8.
Number 8, I went with the APA.
Oh,
Simply because, I mean, Ron Simmons, I'm not a big fan of JBL. Whenever he did the JBL character with the cowboy
the
hat,
character,
and
the character JBL. Yeah, no.
the character JBL, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel right. But and whenever they first started being the acolytes with the Undertaker, I didn't dig it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the storyline. I didn't like it when the Undertaker went dark. I wasn't into that. But whenever they broke loose and did the poker playing and did the hire me and we'll come kick somebody's ass, I just thought they pulled that. I love their music whenever they come out.
Music was great.
Great entrance, and they'd go out there and just take care of it. And now I don't think they ever won the titles.
I don't know if they ever did or not.
I don't think
that was never their deal, though. They never
exactly. I don't think they ever put the titles on them. But I just loved their persona, I guess, is what it was for me.
Mm-hmm.
They just went out there. They just and again we talk about Nikita's clothesline, JBL.
Oh. Yeah, it made you feel bad for the other guy, thinking, man, if I know it's not supposed to be real, but good Lord, it
I think, well, he's one of those that's really hurt people.
Yeah.
Whether he did it on purpose or on
exactly.
accident. He's really gone out there and hurt people, unfortunately. But I'll go APA number 8.
All right. All right.
What do you got for number 7?
Number 7, I've got same era. Actually, I got the New Age Outlaws in number 7.
I got them in my count as well. I got them in my count as well.
I got them at number 7.
Right.
Man, they were just so much fun.
Yes,
in an era that
Yes, they were.
that.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll jump in on your conversation.
Yeah.
I had them at number 2.
Woo.
So give me your reasoning, and I'll give you mine.
Well, I mean, they were overshadowed in some parts, I think, by the DX group.
Right.
But standing alone on themselves, I mean, their matches where they carried Foley and Funk for a long time.
Yes, they did.
And Foley and Funk were just awesome, but they were way past their prime when the Outlaws got a hold of them. Sure. But when the Outlaws joined DX, you never saw it coming. but they're both so they played off each other so well. They're both so fluid. They're both they just pulled off their parts so well.
I agree.
They were just, and both of them great on the mic.
Well, oh, they were
Just
both
great on the mic.
My reasoning that to have them as high as I did, and I thought about this for a little bit, to get them as high as I had them is simply for number one. I loved back in the old day of the NWA stuff. I loved Bob and Brad Armstrong just because of they were a throwback to where they were just we go out here and we wrestle.
Well, I was a huge Brad Armstrong.
We don't
fan.
want to deal with you people over there and you mouth talkers and all. Bob Armstrong was so straight and narrow. But whenever Road Dogg came in, he didn't really want to do anything with the Armstrong name.
Mm-hmm.
He did a little bit here and there, Brian J. Fingers. But whenever he kind of did the Double J thing.
He came in with the Double J thing, and that was horrible.
It was bad, and then they tried to make him the new Double J, all that kind of mess. But because see, Billy Gunn has always been this straight edge guy in the locker room. He's been quiet, he's peaceful, he doesn't do anything. But then whenever he hooked up with Road Dogg, he opened up something in Billy Gunn I didn't know he had. And then whenever they pulled him in, when Michaels got hurt, and then they Triple H had to pull somebody, they pulled those guys in. Oh my gosh, they just took off. Right. They took off, and working in the ring, Billy Gunn has always been so good.
Yes, and he still is. He's over in AEW, and he can still. I don't know how old the man is.
I know,
but he can still move. He can still pull stuff off. And that from I don't know how much of you I've read about. When they made that switch, they were basically just Jim Ross put them together just because there was nothing going on for either one of them.
Correct.
They just said, "Here, y'all join up. Let's see what we can do." And
that's what was so good about them. For me. That's why I put them so high, is because they shouldn't have been a team. They were opposites. Road Dogg has always been. If you read the history of professional wrestling, he's always one of those guys. He's tough on the road. He's one of these guys that goes out and parties. Right. Get Billy Gunn to do the show and go to the hotel room. They were like night and day. Yeah. And they put them together, and then they clicked, and it was just I personally think they were the best part of DX.
I do too.
In my opinion.
Definitely.
I think they were the glue that, whenever Michaels and H ended up doing it by themselves, it kind of lost a lot for me. But whenever it was Triple H, X-Pac, and X-Pac,
really old man.
And those two guys, it was just, they were just so good.
Right, and they were perfect for it.
And
I think factions. That's the type you needed for a faction.
Sure, and that's why I had them all the way up at number 2. So,
I can see that.
So my number 7, is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Number 7, I put down this one, and it's just there. Hang on here, I got to write yours down so I don't get lost. And it's simply there. Well, it's not simply there. It's there for. I'm going to say, who'd you have? Oh, you had the New Age Outlaws. My number 7, I had the Rock and Sock Connection, and here's why. I've always, and it's a heart pick mostly because of Mick Foley.
Oh, I love
Mick Foley. I've read his. Did you ever read his book?
Yeah.
This guy. I mean, the things that he did for the business are incredible.
Strictly for the business.
But for him to be able to pull off teaming up with The Rock is just. He took the character he was, and he created an even more interesting character by, mimicking The Rock or doing what The Rock's moves, or especially after the beating he took from The Rock in whichever pay-per-view that was when he took all the chair shots. But they were so entertaining for me when they were out there. Whenever they came in and he came in helping with DX, they were just so entertaining.
They were. I've always been a big Mick Foley fan.
Yes.
Just from what he does and how he's able to, with zero athletic ability, and he says that over and over. Yeah. Zero athletic ability, but able to pull off everything he was able to pull off and look good doing it.
Sure. All right, that was my number 7. What is your number 6?
Oh, my number 6. I really debated on putting them up higher, but I stuck at number 6.
Yeah.
That is my old world-class days of Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez.
Whoa! Oh, man, that's a good one.
Man, I remember being, again, old, being a kid, and not being a huge fan of Chris Adams
Right.
until he joined up with Gary Hart and Gino Hernandez. And oh my God, they were fun to watch.
Oh, sure. Gary Hart carried a lot of good stuff.
Gino Hernandez was so good as a bad guy, and you wanted him to get hurt, but they did their whole thing, and then when they turned on each other, I was kind of down about that. I didn't want them seeing break up, but their run as tag champions and them going against the Von Erichs, and they played off each other so well. Adams was supposed to be this straight lace guy.
Yep.
And Gino Hernandez, again, if any of you know the history of it, he was basically a mob guy anyway.
Sure.
Got into a lot of stuff, a lot of drugs, a lot of issues, but he was great on the mic. I think Gino Hernandez would have been a good Four Horseman. I think he would have fit into that type of type of role.
I think so.
I loved them as a tag. I had them at number 6. They were great for me.
Well, I had my number 6 is the Hollywood Blondes. Austin and Pillman. And a lot of it is Brian Pillman, to me, was such a
he was underrated.
He was underrated is a good word.
I think
that's an extremely good word to use. He was so good.
I mean, look at everybody he was with.
I mean, they started the whole Flying Brian thing, which I didn't like.
No,
I didn't buy
no.
it. He was not a good babyface wrestler. They tried their best to make him that guy,
right,
and it didn't come off. And then whenever they let him roll over to become a bad guy, and then they hook him up with Austin, who at the time was still trying to find his feet, trying to find his legs. But my gosh, whenever those two were together, I mean the microphone work they did,
both of them, yes,
they played off each other so well on the microphone, and they looked and felt like they'd been doing this forever.
Then you stuck them with Heyman.
Then you put Paul Heyman involved. Man. I mean, I
didn't even think about them.
You got Paul E. Dangerously, or whatever you want to call him. You put Heyman in there, he could talk. Then you get Austin on the mic, and he could talk. Then you get Pillman on the mic, and he could talk. And everybody they feuded against, they made look better.
Oh yeah,
they were. You think of Steve Austin now the way we think of Steve Austin. He's an individual. He's a loner. He does it all alone. He doesn't take doesn't tag with anybody. Blah 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 blah. But I mean, they were just so good.
Yeah, I feel bad. I forgot them
as a tag team, and I remember them well because they're just golly. I just enjoyed them so much, and now that I go back, knowing Austin, Pillman, of course, is gone.
Sure.
But I go back and I watch old clips of them and just. The other night I watched the old War Games online.
The Dangerous Alliance.
Yeah, Dangerous Alliance against Sting and his money. Right. That match I feel is, if it's not rated high, it's extremely underrated. Because I went back and watched it, and my God, it's so good.
I haven't seen. It's been a long time since I've seen.
Yeah, you might go back.
But I've always been a fan of Pillman. I mean, they stuck Pillman with the Horsemen. They stuck Pillman with the Hart Foundation. Yep. Anybody they stuck him with, I mean, he brought it up.
Well, whenever he was put with the Horsemen, I think he was too much for the Horsemen. I mean, he kept stepping on people.
Yeah.
I mean, he kept during interviews and whatnot. He didn't follow the rules.
Yeah, he caused issues. That's for sure.
Oh, and then the whole feud between him and Austin and Gunn, and that was that was out of control. But anyway, I'll go with Pillman and Hollywood Blondes. Pillman and Austin at number 6. Who's your number 5?
All right, we're moving to the top 5 here. My number 5. The original Midnight Express.
Okay, which one is that? Because I got one of them in here.
I got Condrey, Eaton. Condrey and Eaton with Cornette.
Condrey and Eaton. Okay.
Yep.
All right. That's cool.
Yep. Just they were when they hit Mid-South and started going after the Rock and Roll Express.
Oh sure.
And then during that time when there wasn't the internet, you didn't know when they were jumping territories, and then all of a sudden you see him on Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Yes.
And he comes after he goes after Heyman. And he goes
exactly.
Whoever.
He brought over the original.
The original, yeah.
That was
past
that's when they had Stan Lane.
That was Stan Lane,
right.
But they would jump. But Condrey and Eaton,
yes,
I think with the old Mid-South,
yes,
when they
were humming,
when they went after rock and roll, and then went after Magnum TA, and they were the ones that did the old tar and feather routine in Mid-South that you can't get by with today.
Right.
But they still did it. But those two with Cornette.
Yeah.
Cornette, so good.
Cornette sold it.
And those two guys, Bobby Eaton, I still think is one of the best performers out there
ever,
who never spoke. But ever. Just as a pure performer,
right?
Incredible.
Yeah, I think. Well, and the stuff you read on Bobby Eaton, all the other wrestlers think he was
awesome.
He was just one of the greatest guys ever. And so you had them at number 5.
I have them at number 5.
Well, I had Midnight Express with Eaton and Lane at number 5.
Yeah.
So I had Eaton and Lane at number 5 simply because. Well, again, the same stuff you said.
Lane was more athletic than Condrey. Well, they were a better team.
Whenever Lane came in, and it was the transition from Condrey to Lane was so smooth.
Yes,
you didn't miss a beat.
Well,
and then Cornette was Cornette, and then we can kind of go a little further when you said the original come in with Randy Rose and Dennis Condrey when they come in, and then they were in the studio and Cornette got hit in the head. He had blood all over his white jacket, and Cornette turned face, and it was.
I didn't like that part just because Randy Rose was never believable.
No, he wasn't believable, but he was one of the originals when they first did the Midnight Express.
Right.
I mean, that was the first team Cornette had was Rose and Condrey until Eaton and the evolution of it all. But that storyline to give Cornette the opportunity to go face for a little while was so good it was just so good to me to watch him, to watch the crowd support him and get behind him because he's just the best manager.
Right. Well, you were at that time when you had Heyman and Cornette playing off each other.
Oh,
the two of the best ever.
It's amazing.
And when he got the phone call when they were doing the TV taping, Georgia when they first arrived.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was. I remember watching. I still remember watching, thinking, "Wow."
Yeah, it was amazing.
How can you do that?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, Heyman comes in with these two guys, and they go and the matches they had. I never got to see one live. We got to see the hit and misses on TBS because they did it all the Omni, and they didn't come to that tour never came.
They
through
never came
Oklahoma.
this part of Oklahoma.
We were Mid-South to death here, but no. I mean that's why I had them at number 5, simply because some of the same reasons you did. Cornette carried them, but Eaton's one of the best workers ever, and they were just great. So what do you got at number 4?
Number 4. Just kind of a heart pick, just because it's where I started watching it. I got the Von Erichs, number 4.
Which two? Do you matter? Does it make a difference?
Kerry and Kevin mainly.
Kerry and Kevin.
They were. I was a fan of David, but Kerry and Kevin were more.
Yeah.
David was still doing when I was watching it. He was still at world class, but he was doing some Florida stuff.
Yeah,
he wasn't there as much as Kerry and Kevin was.
Well, they did Florida, a lot of Missouri stuff.
Right.
Too,
So Kerry and Kevin, they were just two of my favorites. They were just.
Well, yeah, I understand. That's your childhood.
Yes, that's just watching them, having them do watching. I still remember them doing the Texas whipping match with the Freebirds, and it's one of those first matches that I just remember watching as a 10, 11-year-old kid, just being in awe of how painful that looked. But they were a lot of fun. They were fun for me. Fun to watch.
I was a fan. I wasn't a huge fan of the Von Erich thing. It was too squeaky clean for me as far as storylines are concerned.
Sure.
But that's a good choice. Yeah. I mean, it's a good choice. You could mix and match them all you wanted, and that would be great.
But I wasn't a fan of Mike, and like I said, I think David was the best performer out of all.
Well, after watching the movie, you could tell he was kind of forced into it. Anyway.
Sure,
he didn't really want to be.
Right, and it showed.
Well, yeah. What else you gonna do?
And it showed.
So, what number was that?
That was my number 4.
Okay, so I gotta write that down. That's a good one. Okay, I didn't even put them in here, but I just they were okay for me, but my number 4 goes back to my younger days as well. One of them that I really enjoyed, and that was the Rat Pack, DiBiase and Duggan.
Yep.
They they originated for me the first um, um,
Faction.
bad guy faction.
Right.
You know,
They were awesome.
The first group that cheated as a team. The first group that, along with Bourne, Matt Bourne, they would any two could use the tag titles if they wanted to. You know, at one time I think Bourne and Duggan had them, and DiBiase was North American champion or whatever. You know, they were together. They worked so well together as bad guys. When Duggan came in, he was, and he was a bad guy. That's not a heel, I guess.
Heel, yeah.
He was so good at it. You know.
Oh yeah.
The little mask he used to throw on to do his spear, and then he comes up with the coal miner's glove match and all this kind of stuff. He was just so good as a bad guy. DiBiase, I mean, come on, loading the glove.
DiBiase's again, he's one of the best ever.
He's one of the best ever.
Another guy that I don't care where you throw him in, what you had him do. He's on my list, by the way, coming up.
Right. So having him, DiBiase and Duggan, they started the heel factions for me. You had your Skandar Akbar with your Devastation Incorporated, but his was just, to me, his was just a bunch of single guys, single wrestlers who came in and just happened to have the team because he told them to.
Right.
With Akbar, he was okay for what he was, but I don't think he was ever a good manager or a good.
No, he just brought in big guys.
A good
he brought in your Bundy, he brought in your Kamala.
Yeah,
he was a foreigner that people hated. That's
sure, but
he was from
DiBiase
Oklahoma, by the way. For
come
those
in.
you don't know, he's from here.
He's from Oklahoma.
Yeah,
and he's not.
Yeah,
he's not.
Yeah, he's not an oil tycoon.
No,
go figure.
But I got DiBiase and Duggan at number 3 for just personal reasons.
number 4.
I mean number 4.
Yeah.
What do you got at number 3?
Number 3. Dr. Death and DiBiase.
Death and DiBiase. Well, see there again. That's a good Mid-South one.
Yes. Yep.
You know.
Yep. I was already a fan of DiBiase,
right.
And like you, like the Rat Pack. I liked it. Then they broke up DiBiase and Duggan.
Yep.
And then
he went with Akbar for a while.
He went with Akbar, and when they brought Dr. Death in, being from Oklahoma, he was an Oklahoma guy.
Right.
So I was immediately drawn to, okay, what's he going to be like? With him and DiBiase, I don't know. It's just like it turned a corner for me as far as true tag teams. They were just
so
fun to watch.
They needed to put Williams with somebody that could teach him. And
DiBiase
was so good.
He was rough, and Williams was, and he may have been believable for a reason. I never heard about it back then, but he looked like he probably did hurt some people.
I know he had to hurt. He's extremely stiff. He reminded me a lot of Goldberg.
Yes.
And that he just went in there and he didn't know how not to hit somebody hard.
Yep.
He didn't know how.
See, I debated because him and DiBiase, because I'm a big fan of DiBiase, but him and Gordy, most of their success came across overseas, but still, Williams is such a good tag partner because of that reason.
Right.
He was just better at tag.
Well, he couldn't control a whole match.
True.
If you get an opportunity to go on YouTube and go back and look at the original or Steve Williams' debut on Mid-South Wrestling, it's so bad. But you hear Watson or the announcer really trying to sell what a great it is so bad.
Bill Watts that's Bill Watts' boy.
I know, but it's really bad. But he did get better, and he got very believable and very awesome.
Yeah, I love that. So that goes into my childhood. They were just the most believable tag team for me at that point in time. That was my number 3.
Number 3. My number 3 is the Rock and Roll Express. And I put them at number 3, because I saw them live 2 or 3 times actually.
True, I saw them live once.
I saw them in the scaffold match live with the Midnight Express. I saw them against the Midnight Express for the titles here in the Myriad in Oklahoma City, and I saw them again with I forget who that third match was with, but anyway, they were so good at selling the story. They were so good with the hot tag. They were so good, when they take it.
They're the ones that made the hot tag a big thing.
They were their moves were so synchronized, more than any tag team I've ever seen. Until, of course, Midnight Express were there too. But they were, Ricky Morton. I think he's underrated as a microphone guy. I think he's one of the best microphone guys.
He was real good on the microphone.
Robert Gibson was a great second man. He was. He never did say much on the mic, but when he did, it was short and sweet. But it always blended in. I didn't dig the whole rock and roll outfit.
See,
spiel.
that's what kind of kept me from. I was a big fan of theirs,
but I put them in high on my favorites because I just enjoyed watching them work. They worked well. They worked well together.
Yeah.
Their moves were believable. They sold like none other.
Oh, they did do that. That program that Morton did with Flair.
Yes.
For a while.
Yeah.
You know, there's not any. Flair could carry just about anybody, but Morton.
Right.
I mean, it was.
Well, and you've heard.
Well
I'm sure
done.
you've heard the interviews from Flair saying how much respect he had for Morton.
Yes, because he was one that, was all for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, Flair has had many conversations about he only wanted to go into programs with guys that could go an hour.
Right.
He was shocked that Morton went an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
but Gibson always reminded me of, and so because they fought each other all the time. He always reminded me of Bobby Eaton. Real quiet, but all their moves were fluid. It looked good. He sold. Everything, their double drop kick, which is nothing now.
And it still looked like they connected every time.
Yes, yeah, they made it look so good.
I mean, every time they were just for me. It was a time in my wrestling enjoyment that they were there. So they were my number 3.
Yeah.
And my number 2 was New Age Outlaws, which you've already talked about. Who's your number 2?
My number 2 from the Horsemen, Arn and Tully.
See, I didn't go there.
Arn and Tully.
I didn't go there.
I was a big fan of the Horsemen, but those two just, they were just so, I don't know what the word, dirty and mean.
Right.
And, even when they left together to go become brainbusters or whatever, when they took off the WWF, they were still believable. But them with the Horsemen in Georgia, that was incredible.
My thing,
I loved it.
They were great. Arn Anderson or
Arn's
Marty Lang, whatever.
Arn's one of my favorites.
He is the epitome of a professional wrestler. Mm-hmm. He talks right. He sells. He passes the torch. He works hard. He takes it personal. Mm-hmm. He does everything. You can tell he lived and breathed
his world. Yeah.
The art. He could make anybody better. He and Eaton were a tag team. He and Zbyszko were a tag team. He and pick them. He and Wyndham won.
No, he even over Smoky Mountain. Hell, he teamed up with the Rock and Roll Express for a little while.
Yeah, he did. And the thing that I was never a Tully fan.
Yeah, see, I like Tully.
I was never a Tully. Tully Blanchard never. I don't know. He never did it.
The early days when he teamed with Gino Hernandez.
Right.
Way before.
Right.
And then when he became, him and TA had that feud that was so nasty right before they became the Horsemen.
Sure.
But he was mesmerizing to me listening to him talk, and he looked, I don't know, he just looked the part.
Well, he looked like a regular guy.
Yeah.
But he was still, when he started wearing the suits and became part of the Horsemen, I was stunned. When Ole and Arn and Rick, of course, I could see them, but he came out. He always seemed like not a right fit to me with the Horsemen. I don't know why, but he's great.
Yeah,
guy's great.
Yeah,
the guy could carry it all. The guy can do it.
Yeah. His slingshot suplex I always thought was cool.
So good.
I thought that was a cool.
But there again, he's another one who could sell like none other.
Mm-hmm. Good on the mic.
When he took a whooping, he looked like he was taking a whooping.
Yeah, that I Quit match with Magnum in the cage at Starrcade.
Best ever.
Awesome match. Good God, it was a great match.
It took your breath away.
Yeah.
How
that was one of the more gruesome matches.
Yes.
It was.
There were a lot of them back then.
Yeah.
Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer.
Whenever we have a show on our favorite matches or favorite singles, that one's going to be on my list because that was one of my favorites.
Those were unbelievable. Now.
Yeah.
Well, we're back to number 1, and I think we got the same team. You didn't mention them either, so it's got to be the Freebirds.
It's got the Freebirds.
I got to be the Freebirds. I mean,
Yep.
Just because. I mean.
Yep.
You go. Tell me your reasoning, and I'll follow up.
I've always been a huge Terry Gordy fan.
Here too.
Michael Hayes. There's just nobody better on the mic. That
I don't think there's ever been a better antagonist.
It was this one guy that even as a kid, I wanted somebody to beat him up.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I liked the Von Erichs.
Yeah.
But they were, they made, none of them, Buddy Roberts was a old-time veteran that they brought into the group, but still, Michael Hayes did everything he did. Oh man, he could just watching him work the crowds at world class. He would piss off people in the matter of 20 seconds.
Yeah, he's good at it. He knew how to do it.
I just watched it a couple of weeks ago actually when they did the turn
right
on Kerry
in the cage.
On the cage match against
right.
Flair.
Right.
And it's funny how things worked back then because they did the spot where Gordy slams his head in the cage after Hayes throws Kerry around the ring a few times, and the match went on for another 20 minutes. To where nowadays the match would have ended right there on that point.
Sure.
But the storytelling that Hayes would do on the vignettes they would do away from the ring. Then they jumped over to Georgia, which is where they're from anyway.
Yeah,
they would jump over to Atlanta.
And they were good guys.
They were faces over there.
Right.
And they pulled that off.
Well, but how many times, if you look back at that, how many times did they roll on each other in Georgia? Because you had Hayes against Gordy a lot, because Gordy was with Snuka.
Right.
And he came in and went against Hayes, who went out and found, Idol or Tommy Rich or whatever.
I think it was Austin Idol, yeah.
And they're back and forth. They beat up each other, and then they would get back together. Then
they'd go back into Texas again and do that thing. And
they were just so good together. I mean, Gordy was a kid. He started when he was like 18. And, he hooked up with Hayes, and I mean, I've listened to some of the stories of them on the road, and that's just
that's insane.
You can't let the kids hear about all that, but they were just those two guys were just like meant to be together. They pulled it off so well. They were so good. Gordy didn't say much, but what he did, he went out there and just beat up the babyface everywhere he went.
He looked so good doing it.
He just went out there and beat up the babyfaces everywhere he went. And he was so good at being a big old bully bad guy. Buddy Roberts was the comic relief. They had to have him in there I think.
Well, and I know it wasn't how it was meant to be, but it turned out he was the perfect fit for the Mike Von Erich character.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because Mike couldn't compete with anybody else.
No.
Buddy Roberts was the perfect.
Yeah, Buddy was perfect.
Perfect size.
He was a veteran. Older, he was slower.
Yep.
And he could carry Mike. He could really carry him.
He could lay down in that headlock for 3.5 minutes while Mike laid on the mat with him.
Roberts did what Roberts needed to do, because like if you're watching him on Georgia, Roberts would tag with Gordy. You'd never see Gordy and Hayes in the ring together unless you paid to go see it.
Sure.
Unless you went
big match.
Unless you went to a big arena show, you wouldn't see Gordy tag with Hayes. No. Then they put in the 6-man thing simply because of the Von Erich. There's so many of them, and that was just a huge deal going on. But all right, well, we ended up with the same top team. Well, they were just so good. I was really never understood why they didn't get a fair shake in the WWF. I mean, they went over there for a very short period of time, during the Cyndi Lauper stuff, and they hooked up with whatever her manager, David Wolf or whatever the hell his name was. He brought them out, for a very short period of time there in WWF. But it just didn't fit. It didn't fit.
They just didn't fit with that. That was during the they were just starting to get into the comic book characters out of WWF.
Yeah, that was just the rock and wrestling stuff, and that's
that's the only reason they tried it. And then when Gordy passed away, and they brought, Jimmy Garvin was good.
But Jimmy Garvin was serviceable.
He was always friends with them, but it wasn't the same.
No, they wanted to continue it over in WCW, and they wanted to continue the Freebird thing, and so they brought in Jimmy Garvin, who was perfect for them.
Oh yeah,
he was just as flamboyant as they were, and so he was a serviceable guy for the shtick, but. I mean,
for the appearance he worked, but it was you couldn't replace.
No, you can't replace Gordy. Gordy was just so good. I watched a little documentary on them. I don't know, a couple 3 weeks or whatever it was, and I did not realize this that when Hayes retired, he's working for the WWE now. He's doing some producing or whatever. He actually got him to bring Gordy in to the WWE.
Yeah, because he was the executioner.
Yeah, he was the executioner.
Yeah.
And
why I never understood that either. Why wouldn't you bring Gordy in on his name?
Well, because he was still having problems, and he didn't want him to go out there and embarrass himself as Terry Gordy. Yeah, it's what Michael said during the
that makes sense.
The interview. He wanted to help him out, but he didn't want him to embarrass himself.
Didn't want to go in under the Gordy name.
Correct, because he just wasn't himself. He was a shell of who he was, and it was just. another bad loss for us. But okay, there's a little quick little diddly do. We do that. We're going to try to do some more of this stuff too.
Yep.
Just throw some other episodes out there and there. Just kind of focus on one deal when we can because, we're so knowledgeable.
Yeah, we know a little bit of everything. So
we are pretty knowledgeable. So for you wrestling fans, a little bit of comment or a little something else you want us to talk about, we'd love to go do some top tens on whatever you want us to go about. Maybe your opinions are different than ours.
Yep. Very much so. We'll do it on everything. We'll do other ones on baseball, football, basketball. Sure. More back in our day stuff, how much better we were back then. So
yeah, things were better back in the day.
So you want to hear something along those lines, let us know.
That's right. And we'll let you go with that. Thanks for stopping by and kind of listening to our opinions on this deal, and we will get back to you with our regular show as well as some more of these little hit and miss little jobs, and we'll just hopefully get us an audience built up here. So comment.
As usual, subscribe and like and comment and spread the word.
Click your mouse.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So, all right, we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.